recap from last night's session. The the culmination of years worth of playing, but only I think months worth of in-game time for Cass. I sat down with. Oh, I was basically the session started out where I was sitting by myself at the time and kind of self-reflecting a little bit on what had happened, but also kind of some of the changes that were going on inside of me. And I had this almost reverberation, we'll call it, like going on inside of me, but it was kind of in a positive way. And the way it was coming off was there was something from either a combination of the duress or the exertion that I had gone through that had like left me better. And upon exploring it with like we'll call mild meditation, I came to the realization that like I might be able to heal three, like basically extend my influence, like a procedure to like three individuals at the same time instead of one. Or like maybe do three different tasks inside the same person. That last part was a little bit more. I wasn't sure of it, but I was sure of the outside thing, which is huge. Like basically, that's like a, being able to. You have like three people with like an organ failure for their livers, like when you're dealing with like a planetary wide like hospital. Like, I'm sure like at any given time, three people are doing that. Being able to heal three people simultaneously with the same efficacy as before, which was pretty good. But instead of one, like it basically increases your abilities threefold in a sense. So that was fascinating. Miriam and Lyria came out. Miriam was all like disheveled looking, but he wasn't like pale and sunken. He said he was hungry, and I kind of went over to him, and it didn't. It was just everything shy of a hug, of like putting my arms on him and on his arms, kind of like looking him over and being like, you look good for someone who recently crossed over in a sense. So the three of us sat down for some breakfast, and I brought Miriam up to speed with what was going on, and kind of like gave Lyria some more notes to take. We were talking about the new Itari potential that kind of came out of this, whether the idea for shifting or basically boosting people in ways that we hadn't thought of, like when we were talking about the white blood cell transplants, supercharging organs. Specifically, they were both like interested in the brain, which that's definitely fascinating. Like the ability to use Nuitari energy to basically enhance the brain's capabilities, which is something I'm definitely going to look into because I'm already a very fast learner. And then I said kind of hit with the extra thing is taking organ sets and beyond improving them, adding extra sets of them, whether it's like a fail safe or it's like weaving in efficiently like a second heart or another pair of lungs so that you can like it's like imagine a runner with four pairs of lungs instead of two, drawing in and like providing like a higher level of oxygen saturation for their blood. I was like, they might be able to push their physical limits further and further, which, to me, like outside the game, but also inside the game, it's like it gives you that. It gives the foundation for potentially what I kind of affectionately call, I think Tamir has called as well, is like a super being at this point, like something that is moves faster, hits harder, like the kind of generic upgrade that comes with becoming a super being, like where you have like control of your energy and stuff like that. Like there's usually a lot of other benefits that are kind of passed on with it. And this might be like the new Itari's avenue towards that, like taking the skin and making it more resistant. It's like that might be something we could possibly do. Yeah, so that was we were sit down in discussion. That was like one of the big topics. The other big topic was basically we're not ready to treat, but we have three. We have basically we've effectively treated this disease three different ways. We've treated like the direct form, and I call it the second and the third iteration. The ones that affected Miriam and Lyria, and then the ones that affected the research assistants. So I was like, I think from a technical aspect, like we're ready to treat. The problem being is that if there is someone out there that is kind of manifesting this, and if they decide to intervene, if they're close enough to be able to do that, then like it puts all the patients at risk. So finding out who the person is probably really important. I go through like a lot of the details, what we found. It's kind of like I've rehashed it like 2 or 3 times now, but yeah, like it's in my last notes, I think. So we'll skip that. But that was part of my session at least. And then the third thing I talked to Miriam about is bringing him back to life and like the way I was able to do it. And it's like the one time he's very excited, but the more I explain to him, he gets like kind of that same horror that Lyria and I kind of might experience myself is the problem with it is it's not consensual. Like it doesn't require a person to say I'm going to give up part of myself to revive this person. It's just something you can take, and honestly, it's frighteningly easy to do, to basically take that life force and like push it into somebody else. So like that was scary, and that was like one of I think it led to the kind of conversation of like the leaps in like new Atari evolution that we're seeing, but also I had like a nice little fruit diagram where I was explaining to like Miriam and Lyria how it went, where it's like I gave like one of them a cherry, one a blueberry, and one a strawberry, or me and a strawberry, and it was like I can basically take pieces of this fruit and then graft it to the others. But I think there's something through my process that well, there's two speculations. The one is it's something in my process that basically I'm taking it in and then like applying it or like what do I want to say, grafting it onto the other, but the process itself makes it reject organ, like basically like you know how like there's organ rejection or like you know whenever transplants happen. There's something in that process where the people who I've done it to so far haven't experienced that. Now the possibility exists that one, it's something in my process that's causing that, and the second thing being is, and this was more of a Cass hypothesis, that because of the Nui Quarry spectrum, people who are close to me or closer to me on the spectrum will be more receptive to transplants like that. So like maybe someone on the Quarry side would reject we'll call it a soul transplant at this point. Still speculative, more testing required, but like some major ethical things. Miriam kind of did the same thing I did, where he was like, "Oh, like you know, the terrible idea that like, you know, some random person is drug out of their home and then like basically their life force drained away to keep someone in power living, you know, another 20 years." And which, like I said, like that was I think we all kind of jumped to like the the moral quandary that comes with it. And I was like, well, if you think about it, I was like, yes, granted. I was like, but like, you know, take you and your husband. Like let's say you are, or your, you know, your husband, you're expected to live to 150 years old, and your husband has a illness that shortens his lifespan by 50 years. I was like, imagine if you were able to give basically 25 years while losing 25 years yourself, so that you both live to like 100, or whatever, however the values worked out. But yeah, it was like that was the example I gave, and then also like you know children, you know parents and children like who are passing on, you know parents able to save their children, you know basically give themselves to save their children. I was like, there's like still some ethics to it, but like it's not universally bad. And he kind of said, I can't, you know, I don't know why I jumped immediately bad. I was like, I think we jumped immediately bad because like we recognize like there are ethical concerns with it, and the misuse of it is definitely possible. The next thing I think we talk about is specifically quarry energy. Whenever Miriam was working about like boosting the brain up, there was the idea that he was missing something about the DNA enhancement with it, and specifically like you would need to break it down first and then like kind of rebuild it, and that was where Quarry could do that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he was like, well, that's, you know, interesting and terrifying that Quarry can break down DNA like that potentially. And I said, well, think about it this way. I was like, and this comes into play insanely important later. Like this was a shot from the hip thing. I was like, think about it this way: is we could. I was like, we view Quarry as like this nefarious force that makes people sick and like breaks down their organ systems and it basically it can kill them. I was like, well, think about it this way: is like it's all about how you use it. I was like, if we were to construct a virus that specifically is meant to attack other viruses, I was like, and break them down inside the body while sparing like healthy cells. I was like, it'd be a kind of an incredible use of Quarry energy, like as far as its destructive nature goes. I was like, it's just more tailored destruction towards, you know, harmful effects. So like that was kind of like an aha moment where it's like, oh, like because up at this point, like I just kind of viewed Quarry as damaging the cells in the body, but it was that revelation about the breaking down the DNA and then rebuilding it is where it's like, oh, like there's literally a balance thing I can do here where I could use Quarry to help people or help like civilizations and stuff like that. Like there's a disease that's wiping them out. Like I could basically engineer a Quarry style virus to attack that virus specifically. There was some conversation that went on past that, and then finally, the guards arrived to take me to my visitation with the magnate. Finally, let's get this all in the open. Let's put it all on the table. Let's hope that everything works out. I made some crack to the group. I was like, listen, I was like, if I don't come back from this, I was like, you guys are free to do with this information what you want. Because they like I think they had said like giving Dr. Casimir first crack at like the scientific journals with it, and I was just like they're like Miriam's like, I know you got a dark sense of humor. I was like it is, but I was like it's like it does. I was like it's not outside the realms of possibility that something happens here. So I was like you can take that information and do with it what you will, kind of passing the torch on to them, and I make my way off. There's a lot of guards, and there is craziness going on outside, like not full on riots but like full on protests. There's people that are supporting us, like from anything from Have My Babies cast to Cast for Magnate to like one voice one people kind of thing to like the only good Nui proper is a dead Nui, like the extra full on extremists to like just people who don't like us, everything like that. But it's a lot more intense now, so something has definitely been going on that has stirred them up. We get to the magnate's chamber, and that prime chick who wanted to execute me, she's having an argument with the magnate, and she's like, "You'll hang for this." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on," but that's not a good sign because the magnate's been like the guy who's kind of kept us safe from the people that didn't want us. Who wanted us harmed or exiled or cast out, who were, despite we're trying to help people. And she says, how does it feel to be responsible for the downfall of a great civilization? And I was like, I'm just here to like heal your children. I was like, I'm not trying to like disrupt the Darklands. Little did I know. I sit down with the magnate. She leaves hurriedly, and I say, hey, some about what I'm about to tell you is like potentially very sensitive information. I was like, I'm sure you trust your people here, but I was like, in the interest of, just less people to keep track of and everything like that. I was like, I think, you and I know we both don't pose a threat to each other. If you just want to like leave, like, just say, to like to limit the amount of people like that could get this to get out, because we still don't know who the person is the cause of this infection. I don't tell him that, but that's my thought process. He excuses all his guards. One is this guy named Jai, who has like been with him the longest. And I was like, cool. So I sit down and I start breaking down what we know to the magnate. Specifically, children should be right for treatment. The research into who is behind this, and I was like, he says you don't know yet, and I was like, no. I was like, we have speculations as like the leader of Group 8, the Seed to Stars, has been moving in ways that that mimics the rhetoric of the Blood Rose. I was like, we found evidence of like of a Nuitari who who was capable of like basically spreading sickness on a planetary scale. I left out like some of the bits that we had learned, like just for like safety's sake on my own side. Like I don't know where exactly he is and all this. I like one of the big things I revealed was the what happens with people who show like the signs of quarry lines, like the treatments they go through, the scarring, the blindness, and you know, kind of how we tracked all that down. But I didn't out Borman in the process, and he starts asking me questions about like, was it difficult to treat the people? Was it what like how was the recovery? Are the people like basically shells of them former selves? Like are they? And I was like, no, like they were able to get back to 100%. I was like, as far as difficulty goes, I was like the first person I did it almost myself. So I was like, I was basically being attacked by it while treating. So I was like, imagine performing field surgery on yourself as you're being shot and shot at. He says, yeah, it does sound very difficult. I was like, but the others, I was like, I wouldn't call it difficult. It was intensive. Like, I was like, there was a degree of difficulty there, but like not insurmountable. I was like, but those were the second and third iterations, and I explained those to him. And of course, I made the joke. It's like, oh yeah, like he's all acted like a little suspicious over there, DM. Like, you know, it's like he pulls out the gun and says, you know, it's like you figured it all out, Dr. Casimir. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, but he he gets Jai to get us some tea, and there's a little connection the DM drops there. Is like the poison that was administered to the magnate didn't act the way that poison should act. Like it did something different, and there was something about the way Kawari energy attacks the systems. It attacks them in a way where they shouldn't degrade in that manner, but they do anyway. I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely a weird coincidence. And I'm not doing it justice because this is a recap of a mystery that took months, years of real time to unfurl, of like, you know, research into this population's history, like deep diving into things like you know, finding out little bits and pieces here, secret clandestine meetings, all that kind of stuff. For it to slow, he asked me, he's like, well, what? He's like, because I said like the concerning part about treating the children is the range at which they can be affected by this user. I was like, if he's able to be within that sphere of influence, and as like he could potentially like harm or kill them. I was like, the ones I'm treating, but also certainly the ones that I'm not treating. So like at best I can treat 3 at a time now, and there's like 12 kids. I think there's 11 left at this point after the kunai. And he says, well, what kind of range do you feel like you could do? And I said, well, I gave him like the specifications of the room I did it in before. And I said, that is, oh, quick pause.